Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another. I know that you guys missed itong ating Usapang Partners. But huwag kayong maglala kasi nagbabalik naman ang ating Usapang Partners. At syempre, bago ang lahat is babatiin muna namin kayo ng magandang hapon, good afternoon, happy Saturday, blessed Saturday. This is your Mentor Myron Santa Ana, the founder and returning the 2023 president of the Philippine Advocates for Consultants and Trainers Incorporated. And syempre, dapat kong ipakilala no ang ating makakakwentuhan, ang ating co-host sa araw na ito. And part siya ng ating leadership, syempre. Siya ang Vice President for the Trainers Division ng Philippine Advocates for Consultants and Trainers Incorporated or PAC. At siya din po ay isang proud member of the Board of Trustees of our organization. So without further ado, he's known in the industry of training, speaking, and consulting as the customer service guy. It's with pleasure and honor that I introduce to you my co-host sa Usapang Partners natin. From this time until 4 p.m., si Coach Eckhon, the customer service guy, Malig. Coach Eckhon, good afternoon. Musta? Busy tayo sa mga engagements.
Yes, good afternoon. Buti nga at nagkaroon tayo ng time ulit, no? Kasi lately, nakikita rin naman kita, you're so busy. Even our guest, no, speaker for today, Marvin, and myself, we've been blessed with all these projects that are coming our way. So alam mo na, nag-opening economy, everyone is gearing up, getting ready to have more face-to-face training. Although meron pa rin namang mga webinars and virtual training so far. So it's nice to see you and nice to have everyone here. I'm very excited to hear what Coach Marvin has to say because I'm very interested in this topic. Very appropriate sa panahon ngayon.
That's right. And before we introduce, narinig na nila ang pangalan ni Coach Marvin, syempre bilang the go-to association or the premier association of professional trainers, team building facilitators, and consultants. Natutuwa tayo no? Sabi mo nga, nagbuwas ng ekonomiya. So it's good for the business of our fellow professionals. But of course, not just about the money. No, what's more important is that, okay, we have the platform again, the opportunity to be able to make authentic impact in the lives of our trainees, consulting clients, and those that we facilitate team building programs for. Yun yung pinakamahalaga dun eh. Kumbaga, secondary na lang yung ating livelihood. Hindi ba tama yun na Coach Eckhon?
Yes. Agree tayo dyan. Ang importante is we can start making impacts on our trainees' lives again. Yun yung importante.
That's correct. And kaya nga, ano ba ito? Ano ba itong Usapang Partners? Ito po ay proyekto ng Trainers Division ng Philippine Advocates for Consultants and Trainers na pinangungunahan po ng ating Vice President si Coach Eckhon Malig. So nakikita niyo dyan, a weekly dose of inspiration from the country's best trainers, consultants, and facilitators. So good job and thank you sa Trainers Division under your leadership, Coach Eckhon.
It's the least we can do even though we are a little bit pressed for time. We are also, caught up and tied up with our projects. Pero at least we're trying to make sure that we have this project at least once a month para at least makita ng mga tao who our members are, who in our partners are, and we still remain relevant as far as training industry is concerned. We want them to be able to see what we have and what we can offer and help them as part of what we do. Our advocacy is to really help people.
Very well said, Coach Eckhon. Kaya nga, no, lahat po ng mga aspiring, new, and even seasoned veteran ng mga trainers, team building facilitators, and consultants, join us, no? Be with us dito sa live stream na ito. At matuto tayo, makipagkwentuhan tayo. At syempre, please engage yourselves. Magtanong din tayo, mag-share, mag-comment. And sabay po tayong nagbo-broadcast sa ating Facebook page, sa PAC Philippines, and sa ating YouTube channel. Ayan. So hanapin nyo lang, syempre, Philippine Advocates for Consultants and Trainers. So bahala na kayo kung prefer nyo sa Facebook manood nito o sa YouTube. Ang mahalaga is matutunghayan natin ang ating guest na amin na pong ipapakilala at this point. Okay. So I will have the honor and the pleasure to introduce our guest PACTner. Ang ating pong guest resource speaker ay PACTner mismo, meaning yan po ang tawag namin sa kapwa members ng organization na PACT. Okay? He is the recipient of the 2019 Asia's Most Talented HR Leaders Award from the World HR Congress in Singapore, and 2020 Top 500 Global HR Leaders in Mumbai, India. Wow. One of the authorities kapag HR ang pag-uusapan. So this is really a go-to guy. Marami tayong matututunan dito. A Certified Human Resource Professional or CHRP by IFPM, Certified Management Consultant or CMC. Oh, kapwa ko pala CMC ito. Founder of ASEAN HR Leader Circle Philippines, an officer of the Lean Management Alliance of the Philippines. Oh, nice, nice. I used to be one of the founding members of this org. And former Director of Development for Philippines HR Group or PHRG. Kung tayo ay authority ng mga trainers, team building facilitators at consultants, si PHRG naman ang Authority Association or Alliance of HR Leaders and Practitioners. Ayan. His 20 years of experience in organization development and executive management stemmed from his extensive leadership roles with several multinational companies. So, without further ado, let us introduce our guest resource speaker who will talk about, teka na, pakita muna natin yung ating pag-uusapan. Okay, who will talk about, ayan, artificial intelligence and agile human resources leadership, the ASEAN landscape on the future of global human resources integration, Coach Marvin Zoilo.
Hi,
Welcome,
good
Coach
afternoon,
Marvin.
everyone. Good afternoon, Mentor Myron, and also our PACTner, Eckhon, who's been my longtime friend. And everyone who is
Yeah.
currently tuning in here, of course, live in the Facebook page of PACT and all the PACTners out there, and all the trainers and other consultants who are tuning in.
Ayun. Okay, so very excited kami ni Coach Econ at lahat ng ating mga taga-panood, taga-follow, taga-subaybay kasi artificial intelligence, tapos agile human resources leadership. So take it away, Coach Marvin. And I
Thanks,
hope you don't mind
Mentor
that every
Myron.
now and then as you are going through your presentation, pag merong na-curious kami, tatanungin ka namin, Coach Marvin, and makikipagkwentuhan kami sa iyo. Go ahead, Coach
Absolutely.
Marvin.
Feel free to have questions. Of course, we have the chat box as well sa mga nanonood. Of course, you can always chat there if you have any questions at all. So I'll share my screen. So while sharing, actually, it's quite it's very helpful that there's a lot of other people who are really interested in AI, and of course being of course given this chance to talk about artificial intelligence, and at the same time about HR leadership that is being practiced now in the Southeast Asian region. Just to give a brief background about what I've been doing. I've been in HR for quite some time, and there's a lot of other things that we have been very busy in the past. About training, consulting, ISO certifications, as well as project management, and I've been also teaching in the university, teaching in the human resources management. Of course, shout outs PUP Santa Mesa, and we've been helping a lot of students go through their schooling, and of course getting them ready for the future. And of course, I've been the founder for the ASEAN HR Leader Circle Philippines, who have been quite supportive, and during especially the pandemic, we've helped a lot of professionals in HR and the HR community, and doing their jobs, and getting hooked up with information that they really need from day to day, especially during the in the transition period in the pandemic from 2020 until the present. So basically, what we wanted to do today is to give an insight. Why is it really important, and why is it interesting that HR is somewhere, or some it's a place where you can exercise and actually practice artificial intelligence, and at the same time be agile. These two different concepts, AI and agility or agile, are coming from different sectors or different industries. Of course, artificial intelligence has been with the in the IT community, right, and the analytics community, while the agile is more on the process improvement, project management, and of course the continuous creation of strategic management for many organizations. But now, um, I've been traveling a lot lately in terms of how we are able to share the information, and we're getting also best practices from other regions, especially the Southeast Asian region, wherein the ASEAN integration has been the talk of the town since early 2016, 2017. So if you look around your workplaces, there's a lot of basically artificial intelligence going around way back in the late 90s to the early 2000s to the 2010s, and then now in 2020, especially because of the pandemic. It changed the way we looked at uh, how we are doing our work. So basically, from Shopee and Lazada during the pandemic, everything that you're ordering, I'm sure many of you are ordering online, which you've never tried before. Before the pandemic happened, laptops being sent home from their workplaces, unlike prior to 2020. There are policies that you can't bring home your computers or any of your devices due to, of course, competition law and confidentiality. But now, work in 2023 is so much different. You've used a lot of different devices, different applications. Chat GPT has just been introduced early this year and late last year. So really, the industrialization has gained a lot of momentum in a different, way, and a different scope in terms of the work that's being done in many different sectors, from hospitality to um, manufacturing and education and so many others, including, of course, the BPO sector and many others. So it's not going to be new, or we're not going to be surprised if HR is also one of those areas where technology is going to be benefiting from it, right? So basically, the occupations in Asia in the last 30 years, it's always been, dynamic and changing in terms of what types of work and types of occupation that's going to be available. So in the last at least 20 years, information technology and advanced technology per se uh, were the leading occupations, at least in the Southeast Asian region. In the last at least 5 years since 2018, I've gained a lot of different friends and colleagues from Vietnam, and also in Malaysia and Singapore, of course, wherein a lot of the work that they're getting abroad are outsourcing, especially for software development. And of course, here in the Philippines, there's a lot of startup companies that's creating applications, mobile apps, and of course computer apps, right, that can be used for work, and that's going to be sold for improving the systems in place. If not, maybe even cloud based applications are moving towards every sector and every segment in different industries. So of course, aside from those IT work, there's still traditional work. But even if you are in the traditional work, example, you're in the medicine industry, health industry, you're in the sales and marketing. Currently, I'm working in the advertising company. And previously, I worked in BPO and logistics. Blockchain technology has been there since 2016, 2017. So all of those traditional work had already been adapting technology into their work, right, into the daily operations. So basically, the industrial revolution has always been the cusp of many anxiety, especially in HR. I'm sure you can Google or now the word is you can chat GPT a lot of different things. And search engines have been mentioning that one of the most um, asked questions is that which particular occupation or group of occupations are going to be obsolete, if not maybe heavily disrupted in the next at least 5 to 10 years. And many people, especially here in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines, which is and whether we want to admit it or not, we're in a third world country, right? HR is still very much traditional or maybe even old fashioned. Some of the practices in general HR in the Philippines are way back in the 70s and way back in the 80s. Of course, I'm sure many of our televiewers or the Facebook viewers are going to be saying that no, we're very much adept, and we're adapting to the changes and the technology, and that's very good. But according to the World Economic Forum way back in 2020, just right before the pandemic hit, they said that there's 75 million jobs that are either lost or disrupted. But the good news with that is it actually doubled because of technology. So the 75 million that was lost was, it created more opportunity, and that's because for many years, the revolution has been there since the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s, right? Because of the advent of the computer, especially the home computers, and of course you have the mobile telephones, right? You have the old mobile telephones, if you can still remember them, and of course the advent of in the internet in the 90s. So basically the robot revolution has been one of the paving technologies for what we have today and the generations that we have, from the Gen Xers, coming from analog uh, to digital, right? And now from digital to cloud, right? Which is the Gen Z and the millennials have been so accustomed in the last 20 to 25 years, right? So these are not new. The first movers are in the manufacturing industry, in the automotive industry, the oil and gas. I'm sure you must have remembered Titanic, the movie. Those who are already alive at the time, you know. Um, Exploration, both in outer space and also in the deep sea has been there using technology. And basically it's about being ready for those changes, and that boils down to soft skills. And that's the reason why the topic today is not just technology but also about agility or agile leadership, because you can't move on with different technologies without preparing for it. The soft skills really are the needed skills uh, to ever changing landscape. That's why change management is one of the key component now in leadership. So
Yeah.
many organizations, mentor Myron and coach Eckhon, and the many of the viewers out there, I'm sure there's a lot of organizations in the Philippines which are continuously innovating. And the word innovation has been so used that, it has strung into many different ways of interpretation. But ultimately, what it wants to happen in the organization, and of course to the people who are working inside those organizations, is to be impactful, whether exponentially, whether it's technology, innovation that comes with policies and procedures, or just ideas of new products and services. Organizations now look at the future into globalization. So
Mm.
if you notice, just like example during the pandemic, the use of TikTok has definitely has been exponentially changed. And of course, TikTok has been there like way back in 2018, 2019. It's nobody's business, right? And nobody was looking at it. Of course, there are some people who are familiar with it, especially the new generation, the younger ones. But really, it exploded in the pandemic season or the pandemic period, and of course, the utilization of a lot of applications, whether it's um, you want to order something online. Of course, I don't want to say those names because you already know that it happens on 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, which I'm sure you also have it alarmed in your phone on your phones, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
actually,
they
Coach Marvin, even the platform we're using now is also a product during the pandemic season, right?
exactly, you're quite right. Like StreamYard, Zoom,
Boom,
all
yeah.
of those platforms, Google Meet, etc. They were there, existing somewhere prior to the pandemic, and most of the time they're being used commercially by big businesses. But now it's like it's another type of commodity that's already available. So basically, it's really disrupting the way we look at things, and the disruption has been normalized. That's what I wanted to say. Disruption before is like it's a force that's so anxious, and you're going to be panicking. But now disruption is something that we embrace, and basically because of the leverage on technology. So just right now you're talking about chat gpt, right? And actually it's quite interesting that I have other friends who are now in a project, and we're doing some job description reviews, and they're using chat gpt as making the jobs really easier. Just like what you mentioned prior to our start of today's webinar, mentor Myron, is that really the chat gpt and this artificial intelligence is part of this fifth industrial revolution, wherein it really chops down or shorten the time. It hastens the processes that we are so used to, but of course to the advantage of those who has knowledge on how to use it properly. So basically your specialization in leadership will be highlighted in terms of how you are agile enough to utilize ChatGPT in the right way for your work. It's not going to be loosely associated with laziness. And I'm reading a lot of this different articles and viewing a lot of comments online, as well as videos of content creators, that chat gpt is example in the education system. It really created the wrong buzz in education, because now students are getting lazy, because they can just type in um, any command that they want to be able to finish their homework or their project or their writing requirements, whether it's a dissertation or a thesis or a project, right?
Hindi man lang ano, di ba? They did not paraphrase. I mean, at the least they can do is paraphrase, right? Because sometimes the words that are there, it's very obvious that ChatGPT was the one who thought of it, di ba? Like they can
Exactly,
make it into simpler words, looking like it's their level who's making it, di ba?
exactly, and that's the
Actually,
danger.
Coach Marvin and Coach Econ, it can actually turn you to two different things. Eh. It just depends on who says it and who utilizes Chat GPT. Whether what the effect to him is this or the other one. What I'm telling is that it could turn you into a lazy person. It could also turn you to. It's not about laziness, it's about efficiency, right?
Exactly, and that's where the purpose of the webinars like this, or the conversations we're having today, is to being able to correctly guide the users and the future generations, who's currently working right now, or young professionals, or even those who are undergoing their on the job training, or maybe their internship as students, is to really understand how does artificial intelligence really augment and complement rather than replacing. I think that's the big problem now in the general discourse of how we use or leverage technology. And I think today, thank you for giving this platform on providing this ability for leaders like us. Is example would be in the HR community, to provide that guidance and correctly gear them towards the right way of looking at technology, as to it shouldn't be a reliance of 100% dependence, but instead it should really just augment. And that's the reason these are tools only. you know Internet and devices and everything else are just tools. They're not supposed to replace human beings, right? Which I'm sure there's a lot of other people who are writing or creating content out there saying that you should be anxious or you should be panicking already because your jobs are going to be at stake. Artificial intelligence or robots will be replacing you. I think these are all sci-fi. I'm sure the humans will not be exterminated just like in the movies. But example would be in the HR community or the HR practice. The biggest win or the biggest advantage for HR practitioners out there is to really use it for HR analytics. It's really to make your jobs easier. It's not to replace it. Your specialization will still be needed. Go undergoing 4 years of college degree under human resources management or any other business courses, or the courses that you might have in other fields, are still useful. They're going to be your fundamental, baseline of knowledge. Without that, the tool, the chat GPT tool, or any other leverage tools out there, applications, will be of no use if you don't know how you know to use it in practicality. So example in HR analytics, example, rather than the old, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are as young as we who are using Bondi clocks. I'm not sure if the
Still,
younger
yeah.
ones know what a Bondi clock is. But yeah, and of course there's the forms for overtime, having leaves, right? You have to apply for a leave and get it approved by signing the wet signature on the piece of paper, right? But now everything else can be done online, and it's just a click of a button. It's really about the organization putting the control measures to ensure that there's no abuse to it.
Mm.
But basically, what we are trying to do as an organization is to make the experience so much faster, so much seamless, so much easier, and at the same time letting the tool, whether you're using AI or just any applications out there, to do the computing for you, to do the reports for you. So everything is just a click of a button, rather than trying to check every single paper out there, and it will take you like 5-10 days before you complete your payroll, or maybe other things that you might need, such as performance appraisals or attrition reports, or even creating of learning materials, right? And that's where it's like an ingredient, just like buying things off the shelf in a supermarket, right? You still wanted to do the cooking, but the ingredients can be in canned, right? Or in plastics already, or they're already divided into
Yes.
small portions, so it will be just easier for you to just cook them the way you want it to be, right? So this is basically what you wanted to happen in your organization by being agile mindset. So the agile leadership is the mindset where you bring artificial intelligence into fruition to make it useful for your organization. So example, in the at least in the 100 years that technology has been there, right? So during the revolution, there's a lot of things that's happening that led to the improvements of logistics, the improvements of payment systems. Example, when I was a kid, you'll have to line up in a bank, and then you have to fill up a form, and then you
Yeah.
have to wait for 30 minutes to 1 hour to be able to just in cash your 100 pesos in a bank book, right? But now you have just an ATM, right? Where there is a machine, and it
Mm.
will just be like 2 minutes, right? You know, you already
Yes.
your balance, and then you can also get your money out, right? So basically, now the use of the supply chain, and the financial understanding, an ERP system, your enterprise resource planning, is now integrated into other aspects of your business, right? Where before, you know, I'm sure those who have been working for quite some time, before, there's like the whole accounting or the whole finance division is are all friends, but they're not friends with the other departments. They're not integrated. They're not, working together. But because of technology, it has helped understand, from different divisions or different departments, to understand what's the work of other departments, because now they are sharing information. The information are no longer exclusive, especially if these are company-wide information that needs to be analyzed, that needs to be, processed, and needs to be, of course, curated, so that the organization, the leaders in the organization, can make a great decision. you know if I remember correctly, in 2013, the first time that I've attended big data and data analytics, it was big at the time, usage of internet and the social media, and how does it affect, customer service and the user experience, so which has been for longer, for long standing conversations in many different industries. The the focus has been about CX and UX, which is
Mm.
customer service and user experience. So making the job so much easier, example in HR, such as example again, for recruitment, rather than having the person go through an exam for a whole day, wherein they might skip meals just because they can't answer them fast enough. You can just provide the password to a particular website or a particular log, for any application that you have your information for recruitment, and then you come back after a few days, and then the results are already there for your recruitment team to process and basically choose who are the shortlisted candidates. And that's
Yeah.
basically your talent analytics, right? At least for recruitment purposes. And you don't need to again fill up a form. For those who have been applying in a job, right? I'm sure you have been so um, tired of completing forms, writing forms in a piece of paper, and then after you have applied, wherein you are going to complete your pre-employment requirements, you're going to fill up another form. So
Self-forms, yeah.
imagine the extensiveness of those processes that are so difficult and taxing. It can all be eliminated, right? It can be just done in one application at the beginning. You just update it if necessary once you get hired, and it's the database is just going to be there for everybody to use as part of your 201 file or your employee information database. And of course, that's where your IT department or your MIS department will have to secure, any data breaches or cybersecurity per se, so that all 201 files will be, complete. Yeah. So if you're HR, and or if you're a leader, doesn't not necessarily on HR, I'm sure what you're thinking about in your organization is how can you really leverage on technology, and
Yes.
how do you relate it. I think it's the difficult portion here is that the agile mindset. We'll talk about agility a little bit later, and it's really about how you see a tool, and how does this tool relate to your work and to
Mm.
the people who are doing those work in your organization. So I'm sure that you are preparing reports every week. You're also preparing reports every month. you are collating all of these reports every quarter, so that in the mid-year you have those meetings, whether it's an annual stockholders meeting, or it's a mid-year review, or a quarterly business review for your accounts or your business partners. All of this information can all be generated by your ERP or your information system or any system that you might be using at the moment. And it can be still augmented and improved, right? By, plugging in more other applications depending your ability to subscribe to different, applications out there. But I think what's making it more relevant for you as an organization is that your leadership should be able to define what's important. So I'm sure that any organization out there who are created as as a for-profit organization will focus always in the financials. And me being in the HR field for quite a long time, and teaching the HR community on how to see the value of talent, as a very big chunk of the resource of the organization. You wanted to utilize that resource well, and not just from a skill set perspective, but also what do they do for the organization, so that they can contribute in the profit of the organization. And this information that you're seeing on your screen right now, uh, there's a company somewhere in the UK who's offering their application. Of course, I'm not commercializing them, or I'm not advertising them here. I'm just saying that best practice wise, um, many HR, at least 50 to 60% of HRs in the Philippines are not so keen in reports. And the reason, because HR has always been identified and even labeled as transactional departments.
Very, very, yeah.
If that's resonating with you, then maybe it's time to revisit how do you see your HR, right? And this, it might not be true to you if you're listening here, watching us here with Mentor Myron and Coach Eckhon. If it doesn't apply to you, then good for you. But what I'm saying is that what I've seen so far in the Philippines, as well as in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Thailand, and in Cambodia, in Vietnam, you know, it's still, I think, 100% of the time I've seen so far, HR is still seen as a transactional department. It's either here in the Philippines, the common insider joke is that you only need to know SSS, Pag-ibig, and PhilHealth, and you know how to compute your salary, and then that's it. That's
Timekeeping,
already HR.
yeah. You're already HR, yeah.
Exactly. But there's so much more in HR. That's why I'm advocating that, as part of our, in the organization that we have for ASEAN HR Leaders Circle Philippines, and also with Philippine HR Group, we've been really teaching, HRs out there to professionalize, to elevate human resources profession to a more strategic
Yes.
department. And
Strategic
I'm
partner of the top management, even the ownership, right?
Absolutely. And I'm now in a very privileged position that I have a seat in that, strategic management position, in the executive position, that, we wanted to teach the next generation of workers, not just HR, but any other worker out there, is to really improve the way they see their work. And that is through looking at their deliverables, and how does this affect, the organization, and how does it add profit. The key component here is the what is your value proposition. Example, me, if I'm starting as an HR assistant, or maybe as an HR specialist, what does my work add to the organization? And these are all, of course, an analysis of the output that we do. And of course, this output will be the basis of decisions for the organization. Example would be, one output would be attrition. People are always resigning in the organization. These are common problems in any organization, but I think deep diving into the reasons why. But if you have this systems in place, mechanisms as well, and not just the tools, really understanding the the psychology of people, and why do they feel that they need to separate from their company. This is looking at the real HR analytics. So maybe you can focus on improving employee experiences, right? During the pandemic, I remember when I was still in the BPO sector, you know, for 2020, 2021, and 2022, we need to think about how we can engage employees online, because we are, of course, restricted by the government and by the law, as to what we can do, right? So really improving employee experiences, and also how we can improve training. I'm sure Econ can relate to that, talent development, and how training is going to be utilized on a self-paced manner, and reimagining, of course, the employee feedback, doing FGDs online rather than going to their cubicles and having a one-on-one over coffee. This is how innovation has been riddled in the HR community, and how to innovate in those aspects that normally, in the past, all you need to do is just to walk up to somebody into their cubicles and talk to them and have a one-on-one. But now you can't do that. But that's where the breaking the glass ceilings and breaking the limits, right? Thinking about what other options you can have. So accessibility is really about understanding the components and the elements that you have at hand, and then trying to work around it. If not, maybe even thinking it's never been there in the first place. So that's what agility is all about. The agile mindset, the agile leadership is really bringing the tech savvy leaders into the front, using and utilizing artificial intelligence and technology in general to to hasten and to even improve the way we do things. And hopefully, if we are able to integrate not just in HR, but integrate in different departments, whether it's in the supply chain, you have procurement, purchasing department, vendor management, in the finance resource, you have your accounting, you have your general ledger, you have treasury, you have other aspects of accounts payable, accounts receivable, purchase orders, etc., right? And of course, if you are in the other industries, like in hospitality, or maybe in the manufacturing and the factory setting, you know that's where the original process improvements came from, right? And all you need to do is just to apply tools and technology to those different aspects of your business. And of course, customer relationship is a big part of how you can continue to be either the choices of your customers, the first in mind, as we say. And even in HR, we want to always gear toward employee net promoter, uh, or employee net promotion for employees, and at the same time making sure that you're getting your employees understand what's happening in your organization as internal customers to the different processes that are provided. So agile workplace is something that is both an enrichment and an empowerment. So in many leadership trainings that we have been conducting in many many years up to now, it's really about just customizing the way we are able to associate the resources that we have, and the thinking process that we're using. So basically the competencies for leadership will always boil down to planning, leading, organizing, and of course your controlling function. And the management principles will always be helping us, right? But the times have changed, and the concepts are always constant. So how do we now translate that, right? So when we think about job enrichment, a lot of companies now are using both for their external customers and internal customers, chatbots. And this is because, example, in maybe in payroll, or maybe in employee engagement, or maybe even in shared services and human resources. Like, you have questions about your 201 file, or you have a dispute for your salary, or you have a question regarding your SSS loan, your pag-ibig or PhilHealth contributions. You don't need to have a physical person to always be available there, right? That's where your chatbots will be very useful. All you need to do is just to populate it with your frequently asked questions, and of course your departmental manuals, and your process manuals as well, so that your chatbots can answer questions from your employees, no matter where they are, whether they're here in the Philippines or they are somewhere else in the world, right? And that's the beauty of realization, in terms of how technology can help in your particular field of work, right? So the repetitive manual labor and the things that can be easily outsourced can be done by your AI. Now, where does the anxiety comes in? The anxiety comes in from the job empowerment, because again, HR, I can only speak for HR because I'm an HR leader, and I've been in HR for 20 years. I can only speak for the anxiety of HR being replaced. And I'm sure a lot of other HR practitioners out there are in the same dilemma, and the same thinking that, am I going to lose my job? That's been a question, right? But the truth of the matter is, your job is more secure than ever. It's just really a matter of agile mindset, the agile leadership. So your leaders in the HR uh, community should start thinking about, how can I empower my employees? Because basically, there are jobs that's going to be transactional, clerical, and administrative in nature, which are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, if not robots. That's inevitable, because that's always been the history repeating itself, right? So,
Like
example,
composing letters, even replying to emails, right?
exactly. So some of this are even, these are frequently asked questions, right? So there are some jobs that are going to be automated, whether you like it or not. So what will happen to the people, the HR who are currently occupying these jobs? You know, what you need to do is really to get a specialization, and to really get into, a better skill set, the skill sets that will be complementing the AI. So I remember I attended a webinar in 2021, and it was from Sweden that who was speaking. Um, I think his name was Larson, and he said that, the job in HR specifically is that, it's so enriching and it's so powerful that if you really just focus on the human side of HR, you'll be able to create impact. Just talking to people, upskilling them. You have your employees do training, and providing them the right attitude, focus on the core values of the organization, aligning them to the mission vision, really understanding the culture of the organization, and building, the experiences of your employees, either through engagement, through competency building, or just, improving their functional or technical work. Those are going to be the skill sets that are needed by HR. So you need to get involved now to operations, so that you understand how you can, bridge those gaps, those talent gaps, those competency gaps. Unless you have time to do that, then you're not going to be impactful to the organization, which has been true. HR for most of the time, they're so busy typing, they're so busy in coding, they're so busy in, you know, transactional work and clerical work that they forgot that the reason they've been there is to really improve the processes and the experiences of the employees. Of course, uh, that's the reason why we do have, employees out there in HR, because somebody will have to do the job, right? Somebody will have to encode. But if artificial intelligence can take that away, then I think the focus of HR will be more, you know, on the cognitive level, wherein you can teach people, but you can't teach unless you know what to teach, right? So focusing on the training, focusing on the learning and development, focusing on succession management, focusing on even strategic management, which for many organizations, especially the small and medium enterprises here in the Philippines, their HR is oblivious of these terminologies and what does it really entail. So I've only met very few people who has been in the HR leadership, and they had not been given the opportunity to be part of that strategic management of the organization. So it's a lost opportunity, right? So agile mindset and agile leadership is about the empowerment of the employees. And
Yeah.
that's where
With that
agility
saying,
comes in.
Coach Marvin, let AI do the transactional work. Focus more on the strategic work so that you can be a partner of the top management in problem solving and decision making, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't want to be a wallflower. You don't want to be, of course, again, reality bites. In the Philippines, there are still jobs out there, are clerical and transactional and administrative. Those won't go away easily. But what I'm saying is that the best practices that we're bringing to webinars like this, and conventions and conferences and talks like this, is that you can always make, you know a good improvement, little by little, by looking at how you are going to bring your employees to career development and professional development. It doesn't hurt if you
Yeah,
understand and you know these things, because
yeah,
ultimately, especially for HR, what we want is to really have that fulfillment, to be able to do some impact to the organization, make a difference. But you can't do that unless your leaders will be supporting you. So that's why we are now advocating agile leadership. So
that's
in agility, what you need, this is an old concept, for management principle. And even it used to be a technological principle, agility. It came along with the Scrum and Lean Six Sigma. All of these are technology in mathematics and in statistics. But agile um, mindset or agile principles later on became a management tool, and even a framework, a management framework. So it is now being practiced in many different types of organizations, and even in many different types of profession. And that's why I'm introducing this in HR, because it's been successful in customer service, it's been successful especially in the manufacturing, in the healthcare. So
Mhm.
agility, if you break it down to its core, it's going to be subdivided into three to create an agile organization.
Mhm.
It won't work if it's just one component, because it really needs to work together. It's going to be a culture in itself. So, example, the first one that you wanted to know, you wanted to establish is, of course, is the buy-in. The buy-in from leadership will create the agile culture, because whatever we say, the reality is that culture boils down from leadership itself. It is cascaded to everybody else. So if your leaders doesn't believe in agility or in agile principles, then you know you might as well just throw it in the garbage. But there's hope to that, because it just needs to start with the mindset. So the
Yeah.
attitude, the behavior, and the support system that the leaders will bring to the organization that is anchored in agile workplace is going to be the culture that's, you know, going to be the fiber, and going to be the the germination of what your organization will be. So aligning that leadership mindset to agile principles, you know, agility, just like in any dictionary definition, means you want it to be, you know, flexible, you want it to be ready, you know, to take on any changes.
Yeah. Fast thinking, fast moving, fast deciding, right?
Exactly. So there's no point trying to relive an old success. That's where agility comes in. And it boils down to culture, right? Your leadership will be the one creating that culture for the organization. And the next part will be are the working practices, putting it into policies, putting it uh into policies and procedures and processes in the workplace for everybody to consume, for everybody to understand. And of course, you need to cascade it. You need to do the town halls. You need to print it into manuals so that people can always refer back to it. Or now you don't need to print it. It's just, you know, in the cloud. Can access it anywhere, right? But those are policies and procedures that are going to be unique to your organization, that will support your culture, because these are like your pillars. The culture is your blueprint, right? Your architectural design. But without the proper engineering design, without the proper materials that will support your culture, you know, it will not be successful. So that's why the role of the working practices to the culture is equally important. It's tantamount to the success of the organization. And of course, the last will be the last pieces will be the workplace setting, the conditions of work. You know, these are going to be either your devices that you're going to use, the spaces that you're going to design, and
The
even the
infrastructure. I see.
exactly. So if you want to have an agile workplace, but if your desks and your practices basically are still using paper all the time as part of your processes, then you're not promoting agility in the workplace, because no matter what people think about agility and their mindset is going to be agile, but your working practices on a day-to-day will still be analog, right? Or archaic or dinosaur like, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to be aligned. So when you talk about agile organization, you know, all of these are holistically designed to create, you know, the ability of the organization to adapt, you know, quite rapidly to changes that's going around them. And this is what we've seen, right? I'm sure Coach Eckhon and Mentor Myron can testify, and many other
Yes.
organization leaders. You know, when March 16 happened in 2020, everybody has no choice but to be agile. Those who did not want to be agile, their business are now dead.
Yes. Actually, there are two words, agile and pivot. Diba? Those were the two words that were very important back then.
Exactly. Yeah, it's quite pivotal, just like what Ekon mentioned. It's quite pivotal to really embrace. And that's where agility comes in, the quickness, the flexibility, and the innovation that we need to really, you know, really need to uh, put on the hat for thinking that, and being able to go to the next level, because you can't, you know, relive the past. The past has already been, you know, it's already been done. Can't do it anything anymore. But what you can do is to change the future, and you have that every single day, you know. And I think many organizations, especially here in the Philippines, who have been, whether it's a multinational or a small and medium enterprise, it boils down to the leadership role.
Mm,
You know, I
correct.
work for a Filipino company now, and they survived. You know, they survived the pandemic because of the fast thinking, the agility to work on what's available out there, and being able to innovate even in the cusp, you know, at the edge of the pandemic, where everybody is, losing their minds on what to do. And I think that's where the difference between the climate and the culture, being able to understand, the climate we're in and the culture that you wanted to build. So in terms of agility, the climate at the time in 2020 and 2021 is like, it's instability. You don't know what's going to happen, but you need to create that culture that, organization wise, the leaders are the ones who are going back to the basics. What is the collective value? What is the belief system of the organization? And what is the shared culture of the organization? As long as it becomes intact, you can you can navigate towards the difficult portions of history of your organization. And what happened is a global history, right, of the pandemic. So you just need to be, going back to that basics and putting that agile framework, putting it into a process, and procedure as to what the organization will be doing step by step in the next, succeeding days, succeeding months, so that it can survive, these difficult times. And we've seen that happen in many, many organizations. So it really varies on how agile your leaders are. The organization are just shells. They're just brands. They're just, physical offices, and they're just concepts, right? Without the leaders inside those organizations, that understand the climate and the culture of what's happening, outside of their organization, and being able to understand the landscape of their industry and their market, they will not be able to survive.
Yes.
Just like the biggest companies during the 2008 2009 global economic crisis, Lehman Brothers and all of those other, financial institutions have crashed, and many governments will have to, to save them. What happened was there's a scrutiny, there's a great review and evaluation of leadership at the time. And many organizations who had the chance to survive those crises, it boils down to their agility. What did they have to do during those times of crisis? So basically understanding, you know the job. What's the job? It's not a question of choosing between the people
Mhm.
and the artificial intelligence. So the question is never that. The question has never been, example in HR, going back to HR, it's not about choosing to redundate an employee. It is not. Maybe some positions will have some changes, right? It's going to be disrupted because now artificial intelligence will take over their clerical and transactional work. But the organization's plan, as part of agility and change management, is that thinking about what do I maximize out of this human resources, the employees that you have, the assets that you have. So it's really upskilling. So if I remember correctly, I've read this also again in the World Economic Forum in 2020. They said that, every person will need to uh, upskill themselves, because basically the skills that they have currently will be replaced half of the time in the next year or so. So every 1.5 year, you'll need to reskill yourself with a new skill, which is very true. Which is very true. Example, at the start of the pandemic in 2020, nobody know, I don't want to say nobody, but most of us doesn't know, we don't know the use of Zoom, StreamYard, Google Meet. We're quite elementary in using them, but now we're so tech savvy at 2 years from the pandemic.
Yeah. Even
So
before we were only using, Microsoft PowerPoint, but now we know AHA slides, Mentimeter, and even Canva, right?
exactly, exactly. And now the Chat GPT is just an additional tool to make that happen. So basically, Chat GPT will also be, obsolete in maybe 10, 15, 20 years. We don't know, right? Or it could be just after 2 years. Again, we do not know. Because we've seen that technology change all the time. Technology gets obsolete. But what becomes permanent are people. And I think that's the importance of agile leadership in the conversation of artificial intelligence, because just like today, ChatGPT is the hot commodity. But if you remember just a few years back, I was working in the logistics, in the supply chain organization. Blockchain technology was the hot commodity. So 5 years after, where is that? Nobody's talking about blockchain technology anymore, right? So the trend and all of those, facing, uh the pace of which technology is moving, uh you know it's going to be ever changing. Change is constant, right? That's why encapsulated in agile leadership is the change management perspective. So thinking of human resources, going back to that, and training and learning and development, or talent development in general, the focus now is really bringing every single employee to agility. So the programs and the curriculum development that the organizations will have to think about is that, do I have a program for my employees to be ready for the next 3 years, to be ready in the next 5 years, to upskill them, to be ready either to specialization because they don't want to become a leader, or those who wants to be a leader, are they ready for agile leadership? Because you don't want to just be, you know relying on chance. It's not a lottery. You need to really plan for it and organize it accordingly, uh, so that your organization will become successful. And that's how the focus now of upscaling and upskilling. So the soft skills will always remain, so that the
Yes.
technology, no matter what's going to be there available for anybody or for any organization for that matter, will always be useful, right? Then there's no
That's a relief,
anxiety.
Coach Marvin, especially for soft skills trainers and consultants like us. So thank you for giving us an assurance that we would still be very much needed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've seen that, during the advent of the computer, basically the desktop computer. Those who have been in those who have been training in typewriter, because the typewriter has been there for 80 years. Imagine, since before the turn of the century. And then suddenly the computer has changed the landscape of workplaces. So you can just imagine at the time, right, in the 1980s and the late 70s, offices who had been using typewriters, and people who had been so accustomed and so specialized in doing work in a typewriter, has now been taken out of their jobs. It's the same it's the same feeling that we have today. It's like bringing ourselves back to that problem, right? The same thing that happened in the late 70s. Bank tellers who have been so good in you know uh doing their jobs as a bank teller, suddenly the ATM, the machine, is taking over their jobs.
Mhm.
But in retrospect, if you think about it, these changes had brought the best in many industries, because innovation is inevitable. You cannot stop it. What you can do is to improve your soft skills, and that's to upscale and to upskill, because these are going to be permanent. Human skills are going to be permanent in 1,000 years. It's just a matter of what type and how is it going to be manifested. But example, empathy. Do you think empathy will ever be obsolete? I do not think so. Empathy has been there for millions of years, because
Yeah, but the Coach Marvin, the funny thing is that I don't think it will be obsolete. It's just that a lot of people are not able to catch up yet with empathy.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and that's the reason why we're bringing it to the front. just like today's webinar by PAC. Thank you so much for giving this platform to speakers like us, right? So that we can provide that guidance, like I mentioned at the beginning of my talk. It's really bringing that guidance. We're not trying to we're not trying to lecture. What we're trying to do is to have people realize, because the impact is more important rather than the knowledge itself. Because if you create an impact, people will realize that, okay, maybe today I need this type of knowledge, maybe tomorrow I need this type of skill set, maybe the next day I'll need this type of competency. But this generation, you're trying to generate that idea continuously, right? Like it should be innate to you that every single time that you are unlocking a new skill, another will needed to be unlocked as well. 'Di ba? Parang game 'yan sa online games, right? You need to continuously just unlock and unlock until you go to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. So it's just an adding of those competencies and skills, and it will never be it's never ending. So example, creativity. Okay. Creatives has always been there since the time, before Leonardo da Vinci has been born, during the times of the Greek, the times of the Romans, during the time of the Egyptians. Creativity, in definition, has been there for thousands of years. Now the question is, how does this creativity is manifested? That's where the genres come in. That's where the different types of manifestations come in, from art to music, and it goes also to work. There's art in our work. So the art of speech, the art of professionalism, the art of computing, the art of, being empathic, right? Those are all part of creativity. So it's really a matter of focusing on what type of creativity do you need for your job, right? Because the creativity will not be the same. Of course, if you're a graphic artist, that will be, of course, a visual creatives, right? Because you'll need to draw, or you'll have to create, different kinds of collage, right? Posters or videos, right? Or music combinations, content creation, etc., right? But creativity in HR, what do you think? You don't need to draw something if you're in HR. That would be, up to your job. But creativity meaning, being able to be innovative. Think about, okay, if I will be doing payroll in 5 days, doing this, maybe I can think of an application or a tool, or maybe an AI that will make my job so much faster, so much easier, that I can focus on other things,
Yeah.
as an HR,
Yeah,
right?
personally, Coach Marvin, I believe that creativity is very much needed or is a requirement, especially when you're enhancing employees' experience. Like, how else do you gratify employees other than the usual that has been done over the years, right? Since
Absolutely.
employee retention is a really very tricky challenge of most companies nowadays.
Exactly, exactly. And rather than, wasting your time in transactions that an AI could have done for you in a matter of a fraction of time, you could have focus on human experiences. And that's where usually a lot of organizations think of HR work. It's really the transaction, where in fact the reason you're hiring HR is to improve the experiences of your employees, to have that great interaction with your employees in terms of culture building, in terms of skill sets building, in terms of competency building, in terms of maturity, in terms of career development, in terms of succession. Those require more time in terms of cognitive, conceptual skills, creative skills, right? Rather than doing, those nitty gritty stuff of transactions
Yeah,
and
correct.
clerical work.
Yeah. Coach Marvin, I've been meaning to ask you this since earlier, when you
Go
started
ahead.
talking about agility. I'm just thinking, this is my assessment, and I would like to, affirm this with you, right? That you mentioned about, okay, it is important that the entire organization is taught to be agile, not just the leaders, but also, down below the rank and file people. But I'm just thinking that I think before agility, especially our rank and file employees, need to be taught to take ownership first. because unless they have the care, concern, compassionate commitment towards the company, even if they are taught to be agile, if the ownership is very low, then the agility will not translate to, really going above and beyond, converting or translating the measures into intel that the company will be able to use in planning, problem solving, decision making. Am I right in my assessment that the precedent to agility is first taking ownership?
I wouldn't say it's a precedent for it, but I would say it's a great component for it to be able to bring your employees to agility. I would say that maybe accountability and responsibility works hand in hand, so that
Correct.
it's part of the whole agility concept, and it's the whole agility framework. Because you're right in saying that, how can you how can you um, think about an employee and expect them to do something that you have not had an input to them, right? So culture of agility may not necessarily be the end product immediately if you haven't even taught them the basics, right?
Yeah.
For them to understand. But I think that's where your whole agile work framework will come in, just like what you're seeing on your screen right now. It's a combination of all of this stuff. It's not
Mm.
trying to take one piece, one piece, one piece. It's a holistic. That's why the person in the middle in the picture is a combination of all of these components. We're just trying to identify the differences between all of these components, so that when you create those interventions, you know that you're focusing, example, on coaching and mentoring, because there's a framework for that, there's a process for that, there's a procedure for it. And I'll be focusing on personality development, because you want to also look at the you know what is the behavioral success indicator, or what is the competency success indicator for that. But you're right that accountability is a heavy element, or ingredient, for you to be able to have agility. But I
Yeah,
think
because Coach
what
Marvin, I think it's also one of the reasons why HR is usually transactional, because they don't see themselves as strategic partner. They just see themselves as an employees who have to do something for the owners or the top management, which are, like, process their paperwork, 201 file, etc., monitor their timekeeping, and make sure that the company's employees are salaried properly in accordance with the laws. Those are all transactional, right?
Yeah, very basic
exactly,
admin work. That's what they normally would think, di ba?
Yeah.
absolutely, definitely. And I think to add to what mentor Myron mentioned, if you think about it, it's like you're trying to create an environment that people will be accountable. Example, I'll give you a very very specific example so that we can marry the idea of agility and accountability. um Accountability is actually the result of agility,
Mhm.
right? So example, an HR assistant, when you explain their job, you don't just explain to them, okay, this is how you're going to encode it. And that's what's happening right now. You're just making them transactional, because you're just teaching them, the procedure.
Mhm.
But when you're thinking about an agile framework and doing the job orientation of an HR assistant, that's where the agile principle comes in, the agile mindset comes in. You explain to them that the reason you are this is how you encode it, and the reason you're encoding it is because of this. And the reason for that is to create this kind of value. You just created an agile culture.
Oh, so if I get it right, Coach Marv, it's like making them see the big picture, right?
Exactly. So when you created that, the accountability is the result of the agile framework you've just integrated into the explanation of the job orientation.
Mm.
So that's the reason why I said earlier, trying to pick, just one criteria and the other one is not going to be agile. It's the holistic look of the organization and how you are developing the employee within the organization. So it's always
Very well
about
said.
the why. The job orientation is the how. And the result of that both is the agile framework.
That's right.
I
Oh,
hope
by the
I
way,
helped.
Coach Marvin, before we let you carry on, let's just acknowledge some responses since we started with our live stream. Namely, this one is from Coach Malvin Dinlasan, our immediate past president and Board of Trustee member two. Awesome tandem, Mentor Myron Eckhon, and of course, our boss, our wife, and also a Board of Trustee member, Mrs. Beverly Joy Santana, just saying hello, guys, to us. And a client of Coach Econ, Mr. Birch Ian Namua Granny, saying hello, Sir Econ, from our Field Global Immigration Services Corporation family. And of course, we also have Ian saying, sending support to Mentor Myron, Beverly Joy, and to the organization for this seminar. Thank you so much for being engaged, guys. So before we give the floor back to Coach Marvin, we encourage you to not just watch, listen, and learn, but also be part of the interactive discussion by asking your questions or posting your comments. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. Back to you, Coach Marvin.
Thanks, Mentor Myron. And thank you for everybody who is still staying on with the conversation discussion for today. And like I mentioned earlier, we don't need to choose, between the technology and the human resources that we have. And this has been happening around the ASEAN region. Just recently, I've been messaging between the originators of the ASEAN HR Leader Circle in Malaysia and also in Thailand. They wanted to have the collaboration between the different best practices within the ASEAN region, because they really feel that you know one strength of HR in general is really learning from one another. It could be a strength from somebody in the Philippines, it could be a strength coming from Malaysia or maybe from another country. And generally speaking, everybody's now geared towards artificial intelligence and how it's going to empower the work that we're doing. It's not to replace that what we're doing. So I think the technology is already there. It's really to deconstruct the things around us and how we look at it. Just like I mentioned earlier, it's how we reshape the transactions that HR does. It's really about really understanding how does this transaction make an impact to the customers, to your internal customers, which are basically your employees as well. And this is going to be part of your agile leadership, is to bring them to the thought that, why are we doing what we are doing? So the holistic view of the purpose, the value proposition, the value adding uh, things that we're doing around us, this is going to be part of your agile leadership. Whether you're going to use chat gpt, canva, or just simple google, or whatever that you might be using. I used to use prezi for my presentations. It really doesn't matter what tools you're going to use, but what's important is you reshape the value of the work that you're doing, not because of the technology but because of your understanding of why you're there in the first place. The purpose will be the one who will measure the importance of your work. So just like again in the during the pandemic, I was watching a lot of World Economic Forum, and I saw that the the trend that's being shared around the world is about the three things. It's about creativity. Creativity is not just about art. It's about innovation. Thinking about what else can we do. Thinking about, if my job today is encoding, what can I be doing there tomorrow? Right? How can I improve my work today? How does my report impact the organization so that the organization can make a better decision and make a better workplace for us? And that's where the critical thinking comes in. The knowledge and the skills that you knew already there will be the fuel to that think tank mindset, to be able to create ripples in the organization. And that's where co-creation, many people have asked me about what this co-creation is all about. Just like today, this year, I mean, ChatGPT has been introduced, which before we've only been using like Google and other types of search engines. But now there are more things to be done because of the collaboration. So it's really creating new stuff, new things to do, but it is only going to be created alongside somebody else. It could be HR with finance. It could be HR with the manufacturing. It could be HR with, you know, customer service or sales or marketing. So it's really a collaboration. So co-creation means creating new processes and procedures and policies and even frameworks that's going to be working in the future, you know, that will be more helpful for organizations. These are the future of work. And that's why we need to rethink the institution of work. You know, all of this work that we've been doing in HR has been there for the longest time, at least in the last 70 years. So basically, what we've been doing in the Philippines in terms of the foundations of HR has been in the 1960s. But you need to rethink, you know, the traditionalist is good, but we need to incorporate now technology. That's why creativity is out there. It's a co-creation of the old and the new. It's not a matter
Coach
of
Marvin, you know what you just said just made me smile because just like you, if you've been watching lots of World Economic Fora during the pandemic, I've also been watching and reading a lot of stuff. And one of the things I learned is that a lot of organizations are already establishing this new or additional department or function called the Department of the Future of Work. That's even separate from IT and HR, right? That
absolutely.
itself, can testify for what you're sharing with us right now.
Absolutely. And the future of work, if they have this division or department, it's not about technology itself. They are creating frameworks for the
Yeah,
organization.
correct.
So that's the reason why it's different from IT, which right now I'm also handling an IT department under my wing. It's totally different. It's not about the technology. It's about the framework that will move the
Yes.
organization forward, because the future of work, which I'll tell you a little bit later in my slide, there's just a few more slides. It's really about understanding the dynamics of the future. Because what the organization, the leaders of today, especially if you're an agile leader, is not to create, is not to solve the problems of the past. It is to resolve the problems of the future. So because if you have been just resolving the problem of yesterday, I think you're like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about future forwardness. So that's why you try to refocus on people centeredness, because they might be already experiencing problems that you haven't even thought about, and all you're doing at the moment is trying to resolve issues of 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I've been in a privilege for working for really big organizations, and what I've seen in this global organization is they always look at 20 years from today, 25 years from today, and they wanted to already establish those basic and foundational requirements as early as today, so that even if they don't make it there, I mean, the person, of course, they get old, right? Even if they're not going to be there to see how it becomes a reality, the concepts are already in place. The foundations are being laid for the next generation. And that's where collective intelligence comes in. And that's where co-creation is. In many organizations, when I was still teaching the concept of diversity and 5 generations in the workplace, the purpose of that is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each generation. Not because you want to nitpick, not because you want to highlight those skill sets and qualities, but instead you wanted to take advantage of the uniqueness of those generations, because each generation in the workplace has their own unique sets of skills. So what you wanted to do is to co-create, collaborate between the old and the new, so that they can create the future of the workplace. That's where collective intelligence comes in. So many organizations, especially focusing on leadership development, especially on talent development, especially on competency building and career development, you know, the focus now is in the innovation, the skills, and the quality of jobs. Before, the problem has always been is like, how do I just create a job? Now it's no longer just the availability of the job. You need to know the quality of this job. What does this job, add value to the organization? Why is this there? You do not create a position, a plantilla that is not going to be useful to you in terms of profitability. And that's where the edge of many organizations lie, between the old and the new um, framework of mindset. Those who will be successful is always thinking about the next big thing, and that is the innovation of the jobs. It's not the product, because if you get the best talents, the product will happen. So it's going to be the result of the great collective intelligence of these people that you're hiring. So don't think about the product yet. Think about the people you're hiring, so that those products will become realities, right? Or the services will become realities. So again, like I mentioned earlier, it's about the upscaling and the upskilling of the employee that you need to focus on. And according to, again, to Sundar Pichai, you know who he is, right? With Google, it's a diverse mix of voices. It's about the discussions. It's about the decisions and the outcomes of those conversations in the organization. That's what agility is all about. The workforce of tomorrow will be 91% influenced by technology, whether we like it or not, right? Many of those will be using cutting edge technology by 80%. And the funny thing of this one that I'm sharing with you, that I've seen in the World Economic Forum by Tel Technologies, is that the future is not us. The future is going to be the children who is still in school today, who will be using ChatGPT maybe in the next coming years. But the importance here is that we understand, you know, the components and how does it work. So those children, who are still, learning today, will be ready. And the mechanisms and the framework and the infrastructure basically is going to be ready for them to take on. So understanding the future of the workplace will be still the same. You will need people who will be emotionally attached. They will be fulfilled. They will feel fulfilled at the work that they do. And you have noticed that in many years that many organizations are focusing on, you know, social capitalism and even social responsibility, because the next generation has been so inundated with technology that they want to come back to the basics, which is being human, right? Making a difference out there in the world. So there will be some employees who will be, gravitating towards an emotional workplace. Not emotional meaning crying, okay? Not the drama. Meaning emotional fulfillment to the work that you're doing. Some people will be, gravitating towards physical workplaces, meaning they want cutting edge technology in their workplaces. They want to have, places like, Google offices, or maybe some offices that has, a place to sleep, a place where they can eat, where they can have, lounging areas,
Yeah.
or even just their seats are ergonomic, or their tables
The
are.
R&R, rest and recreation, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then some of the future of the workplace will still be geared towards, business models that are technological in nature. That's why there's still IT. Cybersecurity is now the most lucrative job out there. To those who are looking for a job focused on cybersecurity, that's going to be happening still. And that's been, a very good place to start your job in. And last but not the least, according again to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm.
the highest will still be uh, self fulfillment or self actualization. So there will still be people who will be focusing on the purpose of the workplace, right? Employee engagement. You'll be able to, make somebody happy. So there will be different types of work in the future, but ultimately, at the end of it, it is the marrying of all of those concepts. The agile workplace will be the future of work, because that's going to be the only thing that's going to be fixed and constant. So what can we do, as leaders? Adapt an agile leadership mindset by integrating the culture, engaging and empowering employees, thinking that their jobs are not going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, but instead it's going to be part of their talent development. And that's going to be your talent retention strategy, is you offer to your employees that, if you work with us, you'll be part of this great organization that focuses on collective intelligence and, you know success indicators that are going to be useful to you in your competency building. And at the same time, creating a workforce that is a collaboration between humans and technology.
Very important.
Technology is not going to, rob you of your job. It's instead going to make you better at your job, rather than be transactional and clerical and administrative in nature. And of course, the space. It's the culture itself that creates the space that makes you feel connected to the different departments. Like, if there's still some organizations out there that, the sales department is against the finance department, or HR department is fighting against another department,
The
this
silos, right?
to collaborate. The digital connectivity will bring you even closer, because now it's about co-creation, making a difference as a whole organization, right? But all of this can't happen unless your leaders are agile. And even if your leaders are agile but they don't know technology, it's going to be difficult as well, because whether you like it or not, technology is going to be part of everybody's life. Even on a personal level, you'll see people, handling their cell phones all the time. So you might as well integrate it. Just yesterday I was talking about a former colleague, um, and he said about, in the automotive industry, there's still people who are checking attendance of their drivers, or checking their salespeople, using paper. There's technology out there that you can use geolocators, you can use cloud-based computing, you can use, attendance checks using QR codes. Why not utilize them? Why not? Right? If it's going to be really a cost benefit analysis that's needed for you to adapt to this, that's what agile leadership is all about, right? So just a last tip, for just to cap off my talk, and I've been talking already for quite a long time. I apologize for it. I'm just so excited to share these things with you guys out there so that you get inspired. And basically to inspire also your employees, those downlines who are looking at you as leaders. So what you need to bring to your organization in the future of jobs report that I got from the World Economic Forum, focus on these 10 things. Focus on complex problem solving. The employees have the potential to do great stuff. If you put them in a box and thinking that just because they're assistants or clerks, or they're just, menial jobs, then you're not helping them become agile as well. So start looking at giving them complex problem solving situations that they can use their critical thinking skills. So start looking at trainings that will improve their critical thinking skills. The situations in your meetings, whether it's Mancom, your 15-minute meetings, your one-on-ones, your coaching and mentoring sessions, your feedback sessions, you know, bring critical thinking into the conversation. Make them think. The leader is not always expected to always resolve the problem. Many times your employees can solve your problems for you. So use that, and rely on creativity. Part of your people management skills is to bring them to the next level. It will be a fault of the leader if your employees do not grow. That's part of your people management skills, right? Your leadership skills is required. And of course, helping, your employees work together, coordinating with other departments. That's one of the things that I've learned when I became HR, is that each work is interconnected, even though they're just in different departments. The departments supposedly are not there to limit you from interacting from each other. Interaction in the workplace should be, based on the processes that you have and the collaborations that you do, so that the transaction can be completed. And ultimately, it boils down to empathy, emotional intelligence. As an agile leader, you should be also, attuned, and you should have this, innate intuition to help your employees when they're, feeling difficult, or they're having difficulties. part of your work is to upskill them, to upscale them, to make them feel that they are growing in the organization. Growth does not mean always a promotion. Growth means that they're learning a lot in what they're doing, being specialized at the work that they're doing. And eventually, the ultimate goal is to make them also a decision maker. Even if they don't have the job title, having them a great judgment skills, having that capability to make a decision at their level, you know, it takes away the burden from you as a leader. So most of the time, that's what I teach when I do trainings or I do consulting for management skills or supervisory development. You want to create leaders like yourself or even more, right? Even exceed you yourself, because you want your next leaders to be better than you. It's like, like the natural genetics that we have, right? To improve the next generation and basically bringing them back to the purposes of their job, the purpose why we are here, right? So service orientation, being able to help in negotiation for making a profit for your organization. No company does not want profit. Every company wants profit because that's the only way that your organization can grow. If the organization grows, you can give them better salary, you can give them better benefits, you can make them better employee engagement activities, more Christmas parties, more team building activities, more perks, many things, right? But ultimately, the end of agile leadership and agile mindset is the cognitive flexibility. Today is just about ChatGPT. Yesterday it was about blockchain technology. Tomorrow we don't know yet. But if you have that cognitive flexibility, having that agile mindset will set you apart from many organizations, because no matter what changes, whether it's a good or a bad, it's an advantage or a crisis, every single employee will be up to the challenge, and every single person in your organization will have the ability to help you go through and be successful in the next coming years to come. So that's about it. Thanks so much for everybody. You can check my website and our Facebook page as well. Thank you, Coach Eckhon and Mentor Myron, for giving me a chance to
Oh, we
talk.
should be the one to thank you for your valuable time and, of course, preparation, energy for this. But, Coach Marvin, before we let you go, and let's see if we could accommodate, questions or comments from our audience here, if we find any. Uh, do you have anything to promote, like an upcoming event that you self-organize or you're a speaker in? What else? Your books,
Um,
live
yeah, I'm
podcast
actually
series?
I'm going to be talking sometime in October. There's a HR forum that's happening. I don't know yet exactly the exact details, but it's going to happen soon. Just you can browse through my Facebook page and also the ASEAN HR Leader Circle Philippines Facebook page. We're also going to the ASEAN Tech, sorry, to the HR Tech forum in Singapore sometime this August, and I think there's another talk happening this July. So also please do follow the Philippines HR Group Facebook page, and of course for PACT and many other things that's happening. So if you need me, you can always chat me in my Facebook page, or you can go to our email address here. Or of course
Yeah.
through PAC, you can always reach me for any needs that you might have or
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like
Just
that.
in case anyone here who came across this live stream would like to engage your training, consulting, or speaking service for your expertise, which is
Absolutely.
obviously HR there.
Absolutely.
All right. So
We're
once
open
again,
for
guys,
questions.
there you go. Once again, let us give a big round of applause to our guest partner for today, Coach Marvin Zoilo. Coach Marvin, you deserve this. So, on behalf of course, the Philippine Advocates for Consultants and Trainers, Coach Eckhon, would you like to say anything else bago natin ipakita yung certificate of appreciation natin kay Coach Marvin?
I just would like to thank Marvin for that very. It suddenly made our afternoon, Saturday afternoon, very, very productive. I kept on saving or taking pictures of the screen because I know there were a lot of data, the percentage, that we will need to remember because we're going to be part of this. Otherwise, magiging Jurassic Park tayo and we don't want to be that. So we need to be able to adjust, di ba? So thank you very much and very, very productive talaga at I like it. Sana ma-share ni Marvin sa PACT yung deck niya kasi we will be able to at least use that for our own benefit in terms of alam natin how to move forward as well. So parang naging mentor natin siya for the day, Mentor Myron.
Yeah. And by the way, Coach Marvin, ito pa lang ating recording. We will be posting this kasi may e-commerce tayo sa page natin eh. So we can re-offer this and of course na merong investment and you know na yan. Okay, and
Absolutely.
then Coach Marvin, ayan, let me just share this with you. Okay, hang on a second. Siyempre, kailangan meron tayong awarding portion sa ating webinar. Let me go ahead and share yung ating... all right, hang on a second. Oh, share screen na lang pala. Hindi. Ay, ito. Okay na. Yan, share screen na lang. Hindi makita, hindi ma-detect yung ating ano. Oh, hindi ako makapag-share screen kasi alisin lang natin tong isang ano. Oh, okay. So it is my browser. I see. Anyways, it's not allowing me to show it.
Yeah, I stopped sharing my screen.
Okay, let's try to one more time. Ayun, ito na, nakikita na. Ayan. So let us just share this, okay? The certificate of appreciation. Of course, we're gonna give you both a JPEG or a PNG and PDF copy. The certificate of appreciation is awarded to Coach Marvin Zoilo for sharing his valuable expertise and experience during the 2-hour virtual learning session on artificial intelligence and agile human resource leadership today on June 24, 2023, signed by our Vice President for the Trainers Division, Coach Eckhon Malig, and yours truly, Mentor Myron Santa Ana. All right, once again, one more round of applause for Coach Marvin Zoilo. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So there you have it.
Thank you.
All right.
You.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, Coach Eckhon, for being my co-host partner for this episode of Usapang PACTners. And once again, thank you for your time, Coach Marvin. And please enjoy the rest of your day. Happy weekend with your family. Bye.
Thank you.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend, everyone.
Bye, you guys.